Welcome to Drive the Daf, clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Shabbos Daf Kuf Chav Aleph contains two Mishnayos from the beginning of the Daf until the first Mishnah. We are discussing the halacha of Tefillah B'zman mitzvah, whether it is a mitzvah to go to the mikvah in the correct time, or it's okay to push a little bit later. Then we get a Mishnah which goes back to the halachas of a fire burning on Shabbos, and it discusses whether or not a guy is allowed to put it out for you, or can a child put it out for you. The Gemara will more deeply discuss those two issues: a guy doing malacha for you on Shabbos and a child doing malacha on Shabbos. The next Mishnah talks about covering a flame which shouldn't catch onto the rafters, and then covering other things like fecal matter and dangerous insects or creatures. The Gemara will discuss more at length the halachas of muktzah, of disgusting material, and killing a dangerous creature. So first of all, the Gemara has just stated that the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, the Tana of Rabbi Yossi, is that there is a mitzvah to go to the mikvah in the right time. Now the Gemara wants to prove that it's not true, that Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold that. And the Gemara tries to do this by bringing a brisa, which talks about a person going to the mikvah on Yom Kippur. Now, in our days, we don't go to the mikvah on Yom Kippur at all, but in the days of Chazal, it was permitted. And there are three types of tefillahs the Gemara wants to discuss. First of all, you have a azav, a metzira, or metziras, a boal anida, or a tamei meis. There are two types of flows. There's tzaras, there's somebody who's together with a nida, and there's somebody who touched the dead and had sprinkling of the paraduma water on him. All these three have to wait 7 days before they're allowed to go to the mikvah. But they're allowed to go to the mikvah on the 7th day, and then the tumah disappears already in the evening. So if the 7th day falls on Yom Kippur, they're allowed to go to the mikvah on Yom Kippur in order that their tumah will end by the time the sun goes down, so that they should be able to eat cheruma after the fast. Now, the next level is a nida that's not a nida vardes, that's a nida that is not a zava, it's a real nida, and a yolades. They are actually tamei. It's not just they have to wait 7 days, they have 7 days of tumah that cannot be cut short by going to the mikvah, and therefore they can't go to the mikvah earlier. If, however, their 7th day is on Erev Yom Kippur, they're allowed to go to the mikvah Yom Kippur evening, which is already Yom Kippur, after Kol Nidrei, in order that they be tahar for Yom Kippur itself, and then they can eat truma right away after Yom Kippur. Now the last one is a mechlokes, and that's a Baal Keri. Now, the halach of the Baal Keri is that he's not allowed to eat truma until the sun goes down, and he's not supposed to say tefillah. He's not supposed to say holy words until he goes to the mikvah. For that, he doesn't have to wait until the sun goes down. So Gemara says that he's allowed to go to the mikvah. So it's a machlok is what happens if he becomes a Baal Keri after he davened the mincha already on Yom Kippur day. Meaning, if he became a Baal Keri earlier, so we want him to go to the mikvah right away in order that he should be able to daven mincha. Now, if it's already after mincha, so there's no problem. He could wait until after Yom Kippur is over to say ma'ariv, and he could also say ne'ilah then. So why would he need to go to the mikvah on Yom Kippur? Why would we want to allow him to go into water on Yom Kippur? So according to the Tanna Kama, he's allowed to because tefillah is a mitzvah. Even if nothing's going to happen, tefillah is a mitzvah, and therefore he's allowed to go into water on Yom Kippur, even though it's forbidden to wash oneself on Yom Kippur. According to Rabbi Yossi, tefillah is not a mitzvah. And if he had to daven mincha, fine, but he doesn't have to daven mincha. So there's no mitzvah for him. He doesn't have to go now. He can wait until after Yom Kippur is over. So Gemara says, so this proves that Rabbi Yossi holds tefillah in the right time is not a mitzvah. He can wait. So Gemara says, this is a different Rabbi Yossi. This is Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. And we see somewhere else where Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says that tefillah does not have to be done in the right time, and that's the case of somebody who doesn't know when she gave birth or in what circumstances. And there are 35 possible tefillahs she could do, so instead of doing all of them, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says just do the last one and he'll cover everything. But our Rabbi Yossi is not Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, it's Rabbi Yossi Aglili, and he holds that tefillah in the right time is a mitzvah. Okay, now the Mishnah. We get a new Mishnah which discusses a guy putting out a fire or a child putting out a fire. So it says that if a guy comes to put the fire out, you don't tell him put it out. You don't have to stop him. You don't say anything. You do not say put it out. You don't say do not put it out. You can be very happy if he does, but you're not responsible for his keeping Shabbos. However, a child who wants to come and put out the fire, and he says, I'm just a child, I'm not chayiv in mitzvahs d'oraisa, let me put the fire out, we do not allow him because we are responsible to make sure that he keeps Shabbos, and we therefore cannot let him put the fire out. So now the Gemara has a statement which the Gemara wants to support from this Mishnah, and that's Rav Ami, who says that if you have a fire in your house, you're allowed to call a guy and say, whoever puts the fire out will not lose. Why? Because that's not, you're not telling him to put it out, you're not telling him not to put it out, you're just indicating to him that it would be worth it for him to put it out. So the Gemara initially wants to support it from our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says you're not allowed to tell the guy, put the fire out, but to indicate to him that it's worth it for him, you are allowed to. So the Gemara says, well, you can make the opposite. You could say that you don't have to tell him, don't put it out, but to actually indicate to him that you are happy with it, that you shouldn't be allowed to do. So therefore you can't prove from our Mishnah either way. The Gemara has a Braisa, which has a story about this. The Gemara says that there was a person by the name of Yosef ben Simoi, who lived in a place called Shichin, and he was the finance minister of the king of Tzipori. And he had a fire in his house on Shabbos. So the king sent his battalion to go put the fire out, and they were goyim. And they came, and he said to them, don't put the fire out. He stopped them. He blocked them because it was Shabbos. And then afterwards he sent them a gift. He sent 2 slime to each soldier and 50 slime to the chief. So Gemara says when the Chum heard about that, he said that he didn't have to do that. The Mishnah says that he doesn't have to stop them. It was extra that he stopped them. Did not have to go ahead and do that. The Gemara adds, though, that he did have a miracle that happened to him, and when he stopped them from helping to put the fire out, a covered Shabbos, it did start to rain, and the fire was put out completely. Okay, now the Gemara goes to the subject of a child. We had said in the mission that you have to stop a child from putting out the fire. So the Gemara says this seems to indicate that you are responsible for a child's keeping halacha. Now, this is a bit of a problem because we have a machlokas elsewhere between Amoraim about whether if you see a child eating nevela, eating non-kosher food, does Beis Din, assuming the father's not around, do the courts have to stop him and teach him that he's not allowed to do that? So it's a question on Rabbi Yochanan, who held that you do not have to do that, and here we see that you do. So Rabbi Yochanan answers, no, this case over here is not referring to a regular situation where he's just eating on his own. Here it's more severe. Here the child wants to put the fire out because he knows that his father wants the fire to be put out. So it's a little bit more his father's responsibility. If he's just doing it on his own, he don't have to interfere. But here where he's doing it for the father because he knows the father wants it, then you do have to block him. Gemara says, but hold on a second. But if that's correct, so then the Mishnah has to be talking about all cases where you know that the owner wants you to do it. If that's true, then in the case of the guy, also you know that the owner wants you to do it. You're doing it for the owner, so then the guy shouldn't be allowed to do it for you either. Gemara says, no, the guy is different than a child. The child is doing it because he wants his father to be pleased. The guy is doing it because he's expecting to get paid. That's ultimately called doing it for himself, not doing it for the owner. Okay, the Gemara now goes to the next Mishnah. The Mishnah discusses 3 circumstances in which you're allowed to take a bowl and cover something up. First one is a flame that's burning in a candle. You want to make sure that it shouldn't catch on the rafters. The next is fecal matter of a child, which is lying in an exposed area. The Gemara will discuss whether that's of a child or something else, but the simple reading is of a child. And the last case is a scorpion in order that it should not sting you. Now we had seen this Mishnah quote earlier on Daf Mem Gimel, and the Gemara over there said that this is referring to, at least according to Rabbi Yitzchak, where he picked up the bowl for a permitted use, and now he wants to put it down upon these things to cover it up. Otherwise, it would be muktzah, it would be kli nitel etzarech over aser. Now the Mishnah ends off with a story here that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, in a place called Erev, there was a fellow there who caught a scorpion with a kli in order to stop it, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was not impressed, and he said that it might be actually an iser deraisa, so you might have to bring a karmachatos because you trapped. The Gemara now begins first with a story which relates to this Mishnah, and that is that Rav Yehuda and Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba went together with Rav Chanan bar Rava to the house of Rabbi Avin of Nishikya. Now, Rav Yehuda and Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba were given chairs, but Rav Chanan was not given a chair, and he was upset about it. And he wanted to show Rav Avin that it was wrong, and it happened that he noticed that Rav Avin was teaching his son this Mishnah, and he said that you're allowed to cover up the waste matter of a child because it's muktzah. So he said, oh, look at that, Avin, the fool, is teaching his son nonsense. So he says, what do you mean? He said, because the waste matter of a child is not muktzah, because dogs like to eat it, and therefore you can feed it to your dog, and you're therefore allowed to move it away, and there's no reason to cover it up with a bowl. So he said, okay, well then how do you understand this Mishnah? So he said, it's not talking about waste matter of a child, it's talking about waste matter of a chicken, which dogs won't eat. The reason you want to cover it up is so that a child shouldn't touch it. That's what's going on over here. So Gemara says, he continued, he said, maybe you'll say that I'm wrong because the waste matter of a child is not muktzah because it's noilad. It wasn't here before Shabbos and it just came now on Shabbos. But that's not true, because anything which is expecting to come is not muktzah. It's like, for example, water which flows out of a spring and down a river is not muktzah, even though it didn't exist before Shabbos, because you know it's going to come. We see that clearly in a brisa. Okay, that's that. Now the Gemara asks, hold on a second, but about this waste matter, whatever it is, should be allowed to move it anyway, because it's something called graf sharei. Graf sharei is a chamber pot filled with waste matter, is an example of a disgusting thing. You're allowed to move disgusting things out of your living space. So you should be allowed to move this away as well. So why do we say at all that you need to cover it? It should always, whether or not anything is willing to eat it, you should be allowed to move it away because it's vile and offensive. So Gemara says, we're talking about where it's in the garbage already. It's in the waste heap, and therefore you don't need to. So Gemara says, hold on a second. You just told me that the reason why we want to move it is because we're afraid a child's going to touch it. If it's in the waste heap, so I can't move it, but why would I want to put a bowl on it? The child's not going to be hanging around in the waste heap, so he wouldn't touch it. So the Gemara says, okay, so you know what? It's in the chutzner, it's in the yard. So if it's in the yard, I'm back to my original issue. It's a graf sharei, should be allowed to move it. No, it's in the waste corner of the yard. There, a child could touch it, but you would not be allowed to move it because graf sharei doesn't help you if it's in a place that's designed for waste. Okay, now the Gemara goes to the subject of trapping or killing the dangerous creatures. So first of all, we have a statement of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, a brisa that's against it, and a few attempted resolutions. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says you're allowed to kill any creature with a deadly sting, because it's the only issue with the killing is that it's a isur d'Rabbanan. It's melacha shenetzricha l'gufa. You don't intend to use the creature; you just want to get rid of it. And it's only isur d'Rabbanan. They did not make exera about a dangerous creature, lest it decide to attack you at some point in the future. So the Gemara says that this is not correct, because Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says that applies to any dangerous creature, but we have a brisa that Rav Yosef teaches that says that it only applies to 5 creatures, and they are as follows: a special Egyptian fly, a ninveh wasp, a scorpion of Chadaib, and a snake of Eretz Yisrael, and of course a mad dog, which might have rabies, of course, anywhere in the entire world. So the Gemara says, so this doesn't fit with Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So it says, first of all, who is this brisa altogether? If it's Rabbi Yehuda, he holds the machash and tzricha l'gufas and isur d'oraisa. You shouldn't be allowed to kill any of these things. They're not actively attacking you. It's not a question of saving your life. It's just a general public health nuisance. Where it says, and if you want to say it's Reb Shimon, so it's an isur d'Rabbanan, so why would you only be allowed to kill these 5 and not anyone else? So Gemara wants to say, so maybe this brisa is a mistake. Why would you say that? Well, first of all, we had that issue, and second of all, this brisa is only brought down by Rav Yosef. The brises, in order for them to not be a mistake, it has to be brought either by Rav Oishia or Rav Chia. Anyone that's brought by anyone else, we're suspicious of. So the Gemara says that Rav Yosef said, listen, I brought the brises down, and I'm going to explain to you that it's not a problem. And it fits with Rav Yeshua ben Levi as follows. Rav Yeshua ben Levi said you're allowed to kill any creature. He was talking about where it's running after you. There, it's a question of sakanas nefashos. You're allowed to kill it. Even in isur d'oraisa, you're allowed to do. This brisa is referring to where it's not running after you. It's just a nuisance, and it may cause problems sometimes in the future. So only these 5 are you allowed to destroy because they are more likely to become an issue, but not other dangerous creatures that there are out there. Okay, now the Gemara has a couple of brises and incidents on the subject. The Gemara first of all brings a brisa that somebody said in front of Rabba bar Rav Huna. He said like this: somebody who kills snakes and scorpions on Shabbos, so the holy people, the Hasidim, are not pleased. So Rava bar Rav Huna said about that, oh yeah, the Hasidim aren't pleased. Well, guess what? The Chachamim aren't pleased with those Hasidim. It's the correct thing to do. Get rid of the scorpions. Where it says that Rav Huna, however, his father, did not agree with him because he once saw somebody kill a wasp, and he said to him, "No, you killed the wasp. So you accomplished anything? You got rid of all the wasps in the world. One wasp, but that's not going to help anybody." Okay, now the Gemara is a brisa, which is indirectly related. The brisa says if somebody comes across a snake or a scorpion, and he manages to kill it, so then that proves that the reason why he crossed paths with the snake and scorpion is so that he should be able to kill it. If, however, he doesn't kill it, then he should know that that snake and scorpion was sent to kill him. And the only reason why he survived is because Shemayim decided to make a miracle for him and save him. Now, the Gemara says on the subject, Ula says, the Pasuk Rabbi Barachana says, and Rav Yechanan, that's only referring to where it hissed at him, where it was actually angry at him and planning to attack him. If it just walked by, it's not an issue. Okay, now the Gemara says that Rav Abba Barachana said one time a snake fell into the Beis Medrash, and somebody from Nivsi got up and killed it, and Rabbi said, oh, that snake met his match, somebody equal to him did him in. So the Gemara says, was he complimenting him and saying that he was as tough as the snake? Or was he not pleased with what he did and saying it was not correct to kill the snake on Shabbos, and therefore he was comparing his evil deed to the snake's evil intent? Gemara wants to bring a raya on the subject. The proof is from another incident that happened where you had Rav Abba, the son of Rabbi Chiya bar Abba, and Rabbi Zera was sitting on the porch of Rabbi Yanai, and they were discussing learning, and this question came up, are you allowed to kill a snake or a scorpion on Shabbos? He went and asked Rabbi Yanai, and he said, listen, I kill wasps, so I'm certainly allowed to kill a snake and a scorpion. So you see that you are allowed to kill him, so most likely Rebbe was pleased with the fact that they killed him. So Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Maybe this is referring to stepping on him as you're walking, meaning you're not going out of your way to not kill him, but to actually go ahead and attack him and kill him, that you wouldn't be allowed to do. Why would I say that? Because we have a number of things that you're allowed to do. Just while you're walking, you don't have to alter your steps to avoid it. What's that? Like, for example, Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to step on spittle on the ground. You don't have to worry about smoothing, the malach of smoothing out the ground or the spittle. Rav Shesha says you're allowed to step on a snake's head if you're just walking by. Rav Katina says you're allowed to step on a scorpion. You don't have to walk out of the way. Okay, now there's another incident here. The Gemara says that Abba Bar Marta was also called Abba Bar Minyumi, owed money to the house of the Reish Galusa, and they grabbed him and they were mitzarle. They were causing him pain, either by doing something to him or by just holding him captive in order to get him to pay. And there was some spit on the ground. So the Reish Galusa said, bring some kli to cover up the spit. Now remember, the Reish Galusa was a Jew, even though he was often a person of ill repute, but he was a Jew. So Abba Bar Marta said to him, you don't have to. Don't you know the fact that Yehuda said you're allowed to just step on it as you're walking? So the Reish Galusa said, I see this guy's a rabbi. He's a rabbi. Okay, let him go. Let the rabbi go. Okay, we have one line left in Daf Kaf Chof Aleph. We shall pick it up together with the next.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.